Hit it.
Hello, just in time for Halloween. I am Sunita Deshpande with the Sideshow, and today I am so excited to present two people who have helped me immensely and are here to help you immensely with any of your questions. They've got the answers, they have seen it all, and without further ado, I would very much, and again, the time of ghosting. This is a CBD ghost I made. In the time of ghosting with grace, taking care of getting a new job in this wonderful job climate. These two women have, again, seen it all. They have coached it all. And Perk Coaching, check it out because it's an incredible coaching service. Without further ado, even more, Hillary Black and Catherine Freund, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Excited to be here.
We are so excited to have you here too. I know so many people have signed up for this panel. They have a ton of questions for you. Questions about freelance, question about permanent jobs, questions about how do I get a job in this crazy climate. I'm sure, again, you've seen everything.
So from getting your next gig to managing ghosting with grace, I am Hillary Black. Quickly, I am a failed copywriter. My dad's best friend from growing up in Brooklyn was the chairman of SVA, graphic design and advertising, Richie Wild. I went to school to be a copywriter. I hated it. I got a stomach ache. I wanted to be a poet. It did not transfer over very well. Charles Bukowski would be upset. I then decided to start, helping talent. It was something that gave me great joy. I became a recruiter. And from there, as a recruiter over time, I said, what else do I want to do? And I shifted over to get a degree in social work in my late 30s. I am in my late 40s now. And so I utilized that social work degree into what we now have as Perk Coaching, which is doing more workshops and panels and doing things like that so that we could be of more service to talent and helping them try to figure out the journey that they're on. And then none of it happens or is not done well without Catherine. So she could share. Her journey is really interesting.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I've been with K & Black for, oh my gosh, almost 6 years now. And, helped us start Perk, our coaching division. I started my career actually as a designer. So I worked at an agency for a while. And through that, I ended up wearing a lot of hats: project manager, art director, producer, like you name it. And then one of those was recruiter. And I actually, through that, realized, what? I love being a creative, but my real passion at the end of the day is people. And so I got in touch with Hillary and Leslie through a mutual contact. We can talk about that more later. And have been at K & Black ever since. And throughout that whole time, so I got certified as a coach. And I had an e-commerce business on the side for fun. I do sound healing. I'm a Reiki practitioner, just curious and always ready to learn. So my career, I feel like all of us, is ever evolving and always changing and have many interests.
I love this about both of you. First of all, I just want to interject because what's so nice is you've been in the ring. You know what it's like to be on the creative end, and also to, you have an appreciation for this. So I want to say that is so amazing. And I also love Reiki too. I'm so into Reiki.
Yeah.
It's best.
It is true. Thank you. And you know what it does? Like, I have family in the business. So for me also, my brother's a creative director. He did 4 tours at Deutsch, and I've watched him after he left Deutsch to go onto the branding side or be in freelance and not really be a part of a family for a while in advertising, and experience that feeling of like, well, I didn't get this, or I don't have any awards. And he's really talented, but not a single award to show for it. And what does that mean? We have awardism we're dealing with now. And how do we deal with that? And so having that kind of information and those stories are so important. So we also want you all to know, take what you love and leave the rest. What we say is just our opinion. It's what we've learned. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Oh my God. And Catherine's been doing it for about a decade now, or a little bit less. And so I think it's important that you just take what works for you today, and anything that you're like, no, then just no, don't do it.
And Hill, I just want to jump in here because I don't, just in case you don't know who we are, I feel like a lot of you probably seen us around. You maybe are some of our candidates, but just in case you don't know who we are, Kay and Black. So Kay and Black is Hillary Black, who is here, and Leslie Kay, who is our other partner. She's not here, but she's also lovely and wonderful. And Kay and Black has been around. Like Hillary and Leslie were two of the first creative recruiters in the advertising industry. So I just want to provide that context. Like, I think it's important to note. And we work with creatives. We also work with count people, strategists, production, recruitment, assistants, you name it, administrative. We work with agencies, we work with brands, big and small, freelance and full-time. So we really have a bird's eye view of the whole industry, which is kind of cool. And it allows us to learn a lot of different things and gather different perspectives. So like Hillary said, take what you love and leave the rest. But a lot of what we're talking about today and the way we answer questions is really kind of pulling all this information from these different people and kind of synthesizing what we have learned works. And that's where, we've kind of taken that information and created PERC, which is our coaching division, which we're starting group coaching November 10th. Woo! That's for creatives. So basically a lot about what we're going to talk about today. But yeah, so it comes from a culmination of all of that years of knowledge and different perspectives. So.
And I love this too so much about you guys, because you have seen how many different stories, how many people who maybe, they wanted to get married and have kids and their lifestyle changed. They wanted a different type of work-life balance. You've seen how people's lives have changed, transitions, and maybe they've gone into, I don't know, they've worked from an agency life and then they've actually worked in-house somewhere else. You've seen all the transitions. And I think that's what's so cool about what you guys do, because it's you when you unlimit yourself, you just open up so many more possibilities. And I have friends who are a lot happier in-house. So you just never know what that right fit for you will be. And you guys have, again, like you said, that bird's eye view can really help folks.
Yes. And we know what's going on like inside the agencies versus just out. We have a perspective of inside and outside, even though we're not inside. We know because of what they're asking us for or what we're hearing from other candidates. So when you feel like you're alone, I just want to say one thing. What's really beautiful about what you're doing, Sunita, right now, and Josh, is that you're creating a community that feels like a safe place for people. And so what I also would just like to say, what's said here is going to be, it is videoed and it is recorded, but I think it's important for you to know that this is a community of which you will be able to get support from. So share your information in the chat and let us know too. And then reach out to us after this is done. If you have any questions at all, we're here for you. So yeah, so with that, we'll get started.
Yeah. So today, we can cover many topics. We sort of set this up as a recruiter Q&A. So there's so many parts, right, to getting a gig, whether it's figuring out what your strengths are, what recruiters look for, portfolios, the overall hiring process and all those steps in the recruitment process, networking, how do I even contact a person who I don't know and connect to a company I want to work for? How do I do that? And then, my Zoom bar is in front of the last point. But I think I had interviewing, stuff like that. So really, we can cover anything in there.
Yeah.
We kind of wanted to hear from the audience, if you have any questions off the bat, things you're really wanting to hear, so that we make sure we speak to those today.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say definitely start typing in those questions. It's never too early to ask them because they are absolutely here to help you. So it could even be a question of hey, I'm a really introverted person. I don't like reaching out to people. I don't like networking. The word networking makes me might feel sleazy or schmoozy or weird.
Yeah.
It might be a personality thing too, right? And a lot of times in advertising, the personalities that move forward are highly extroverted. Sometimes they're very aggressive, and not everybody is like that. But that doesn't mean those people shouldn't also move ahead too, if they have a lot of creative gifts to offer. I've noticed some of the best leaders happen to be introverts, but they just know how to assess themselves. So we have a question come in just now. Interested in in-house jobs. I hear mixed things. Many are bored and unchallenged. I've heard that too, but I've also heard really good things too. Coming from the agency side, how do you find the opportunities that will be fulfilling for those who are used to thinking in terms of big integrated ideas and campaigns? So that's the first question. Great question.
Yeah. I'll just start by saying a couple of things about it. Listen, any job you take, there's going to be good and bad, right? And for some people, and I just said this to someone the other day, a client side job is going to be limiting. It depends what client side job, right? Is it a client that an in-house job that has 5 agencies doing their work? Or is it an in-house job where they don't have any agencies doing their work? Or is it an in-house job that has 1 agency partner? Is it a job where the in-house agency is responsible for the decision making, or is the agency responsible for the decision making? Who is, creating the voice? The other thing is that yes, it is hard because some of you may have also worked. One of the complaints we hear is, well, I've worked on multiple brands. How am I going to feel about working on one brand, right? But I also believe that this is something to think about where you get this feeling of you really, really, truly connect to the brand in a way that you maybe never have before in your career. And so it doesn't necessarily need to be something that you take on forever. It could just be a layer of your experience that you add to your career that shows that you have had the experience that is so deep and so it's rich, right? And there are integrated ideas. And there are big ideas and there are campaigns, right? If you think about it, when I started talking to Prudential, I remember they said, we have multiple products. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I wasn't like, if I'm an agency head, I'm like, what do you mean you have multiple products? You mean multiple brands? Like, they have products. And then you work on those products as if they are actually different brands. So insurance might be one for them, or like, different life insurance policies, right? Or if you're working for Casper, maybe this product, and then they come out with another product. So you're going to be challenged, and you can't know until you get in there, right? Kat, what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was so beautifully said. And I think people should also realize, like, there's so many agency people who now work brand side and client side. Like, it's not, so I think the crossover now is way more common, and like brands are taking ways of working from agencies and sort of pulling those in, and now sort of working like a mini agency within a brand, and vice versa. I think there's a lot more transfer of ideas and ways of working. Each brand is going to be different. So I think it's about really doing your research and really asking deeper questions if you're interested in working in-house for a particular brand, and like really getting clear on, like Hillary was talking about, like how they're structured. Are you working on the overarching brand? Are you working on specific products or areas of the business? I think it's all about like asking deeper questions to get the information so you can find out if that's going to be the right fit for you or
And
not.
I love that, like, you talked about this too as well, because like you even mentioned Casper, right? It's like people might not even think, oh yeah, Casper, I've seen their stuff. I really like their stuff. It's very creative. It's very fun. And it, again, unlimits themselves. And I also like what you touched on upon, Catherine, because you spoke about, there's almost like I think before there was a bit of a stigma about going in-house in some ways. And then I think the more people did it, the more people were like, wait a minute, this is actually, again, it depends on what your personality type is, but what kind of opportunities am I going to have at this place? Because again, that opens up how many more opportunities for you to send your book to, for you to reach out to, for you to make connections and progress.
And also, exactly, Sunita. And the other thing is to consider that if you're a freelancer, can you put in the chat how many, if you're freelancing before we go on, if you're a freelancer, if you're full-time, if you're currently looking for something to go full-time. I know.
Yeah, please write. Yeah, please let us know what you're up to,
Yeah.
and what your goals are,
Because one of the things to think about is the trend started, if you think about it, right, as a Mad Men culture to your Mad Women. This Mad Men culture, what happened is that a lot of people were, they're getting more senior and there's less positions, right? So a lot of the first transition from agency side to client side, I found personally was from senior management, right? And then what happened is people would follow. But what's good about client side for freelancers, especially if you're somebody who has a hard time with managing the unexpectation, the lack of security in full time, is that client side will do not, again, take what you want and leave the rest. And what I say here is only based on experience, is that client side tends to keep freelancers on for a really long time. And they actually make you do contracts. So it's truly important for you to remember that if you're somebody who needs a sense of security, sometimes the client side will behoove you more than the agency side.
And see, these are such great things to know, because again, there is like, for some people, like that stigma, and mentioning these companies that are a pleasure to work at, and that will actually bring you on, and not just say, hey, this is just for the next 2 or 3 days, we'll see how we like you, versus, you know, hey, we know you're married with kids, you know, you want to stay for 3 months.
Right.
So I've got some great questions coming in, which I'm so excited about. I have, working at Saatchi LA was like that. I think this is a comment. Only client was Toyota, but every car was treated like a different brand. And I have another anonymous attendee question. A side project is a great way to stand out and show your creativity outside of branded work, but it's beginning to feel like it's now an expected part of a creative's portfolio. What can a creative or aspiring creative do to address this if their side thing is a non-creative job, volunteer work, helping the family, etc.? By the way, we got this a lot, and I think volunteer work is totally a side hustle that you can talk about in a blog or whatever, because the empathy that you learn and emotion sells everything in advertising. So I think that is definitely, like, it's more than a side hustle. And there is concerned with dated work being in your portfolio. Does this apply to side projects? And if so, how old is too old? So those are the 2 questions.
Yeah. You know, Kat, can you just share the soft skills slide, or the slide about, I don't think we have a side hustle one in this deck, but you know, to that concern, I just want to share something. I was coaching someone the other day, and I was talking about the fact that currently, and this doesn't have to relate to anyone, but you know, I am a 1st and 3rd grade teacher right now. No joke. I am genuinely a 1st and 3rd grade teacher to my children. It is exhausting, harrowing, but it is also experience that has taught me a great deal of patience, or that I don't have as much patience as I need. It has taught me how to manage things or projects in a way that I haven't, even as a small business owner. It is, these little people have big opinions, right? And I know it sounds funny, but they have really big opinions. It has taught me to be, as
They
somebody,
really do.
oh my God, who is currently trying to learn and get educated in emotional intelligence to a higher level beyond my social work degree. I am learning more empathy. I am learning more active listening skills. And so I just want to tell you that things like volunteering, it's how you share your story, right? So let's say I'm curious if you could share in the chat how many of you are, if you've shared yet, but I don't know if you're a writer, an art director, a copyright, you know, a strategist, a admin, whatever it may be, because it's how you tell your story, right? So if you only, and I say only in a very like, you know, I don't mean it that way, are volunteering, right? Your time, it's about how you share that story. So if you share it in an extremely creative way, and let's say it's like a carousel across your portfolio, right? Of just all the comments that people have said during your volunteer time, right? And it's all the things that they said to you about you, or it's thoughts about your experience there and how it transfers over into what job you want. Think about it as a conversation, not just as like this thing, this bookmark or this footnote on your resume, right? So make the experience your project or your actual brief, right? So let's say it's volunteering. How are you going to market the volunteering, right? You know you're doing it to be of service, and you did service, right? Now, how can you utilize that? And you're not doing it to get a job, but if you don't have what they're asking for, there's extra side work. And by the way, yes, it's helpful to have it. It's not, you don't have to have side work to get, it doesn't hurt, but it's who you are and how you talk about yourself. So whether it's in your about section or in the way you describe your volunteer work, it's all in the delivery and the conversation around it.
Yeah. And like, you can use like truly I think any of your interests outside of the agency world or work, like you could connect, maybe your volunteer work is with a particular organization, like for example, I volunteer with Minds Matter Colorado, which works with high school teens to help them get into college. What if I wanted to work at like a place like Guild Education? You can then use that experience and those hours of volunteer work as like maybe a branch into a new industry. Or if you're not looking to go into that industry, it's just an added skill set that, as Hill said, if you present your story in a way that's engaging on your about page or just in the way that you introduce yourself or feature it on a blog on your site, that's just another thing that someone can say, wow, this person is a strategist or this person is a designer and art director. And did you see they do this other thing? Like it just becomes another asset that makes you stand out and makes you unique. I think actually, you know what? I have a slide about this. Maybe it'll be helpful.
And while she's finding the slide,
yeah.
somebody, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Kat, go ahead.
Yeah. So like I use this Venn diagram image a lot when people are kind of trying to stretch or move into a different role or just get a new role. And so what you really want to focus on is, okay, what are my strengths and my skills? Like being compassionate to myself, not judgmental, like where are some areas I could grow and I can improve? And then as I'm looking at roles, where do those things overlap? So where I want to be, what are my skills? Where do those overlap? This area is going to be that area where, okay, I could maybe learn a new skill or a new program or improve my communication skills. And then the other side is going to be, like I said, oh crap, this person has this added skill that they can bring. So, I would just talk about it as this is an added asset that I bring to this team, whether it is helping my family, it makes me a more empathetic leader, whether it's volunteer work, some kind of side project, it's all part of you. So
Yeah, and it's a way for your boss to get to know you as a human being. Like if you were volunteer with deaf children, they know that you could speak sign language. You never know what that can bring to the table.
Yeah. And the other part of that question, just to briefly, so we make sure we get to everything is there a concern with dated work being in your portfolio? Does it apply to side projects? And if so, how old is too old? So, we deal with this all the time. And I think it's about asking one thing we do is, I think, did you have Camilla on from Pimp Your Portfolio?
Yeah.
Okay.
She did. Yeah.
So I had Camilla do my brother's portfolio for him because I wanted him to have his images, and we'll talk about this. Kat, can you do we have an example of, I wanted his images to be separated. It's almost like an old school portfolio where I would never have an ad next to each other because a campaign next to each other, they need to have their own voice. And so sometimes when people's portfolios are like, it's almost like our boxes, even though it has some little black space in between, it needs to have its own voice. And then she created, I had her create some GIFs for some of his stuff. And I had her really, and I had one candidate who I had him use an illustrator to illustrate the brands, these amazing illustrations he found in Illustrator, so that every cover of each section on his portfolio was another illustration. Otherwise, people they weren't going to dig in, but they knew that he cared enough and that the user experience became a better way for people to like dig in and want to get to know him. So and also if you have like a ton of pieces, just ask yourself, make a list from 1 to 10 or 1 to 5. What are the ones that you feel are the strongest pieces or that people will really connect to? And then, and just show them what you need to, as UX people, you show 4, 5 at max. It's okay if you're not. And strategists, you're going to show case studies. It's okay. Right. Case studies for creatives, unless you're more senior, people want to get in and get out. But Kat, you're sharing the,
do you have Brian's link? I was trying to find it.
I also want to say I'm so excited. We're having so many questions and interaction in these boxes. So cool. Hillary had asked how many, what are your backgrounds here? So we have designer, art director, creative director. That was one. Designer, art director. We have strategist here. We have, let's see here. We have another copywriter. We have a copywriter in Portland. So it's funny because when you're talking about those images, Hillary, me as a copywriter who, look, I love long copy. I will read it till the cows come home. I love some good long copy. I always am like, well, it's copy that's king, but when you speak to it, we are such visual creatures too, that visual is gonna pull you in.
Can you see the portfolio?
Yes, I can.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my thing. Don't look at Asian Fin delivery. So what I want to say is, so his work was 7 to 8 years old, right? And so he wasn't connecting to it. I mean, the work that he had done the only thing I would have said is when you screen over it, he should have had maybe like the name of these brands, like Roadway Moving he worked on. But my brother became another thing to talk about. So you get a sense here of how he did it. I'm just going to stop the share. So Kat could put hers up.
Oh, I'm going to put up actually another Mike Lightman.
Oh, that was the other
He's a
gentleman.
great
So Mike
example.
Lightman's the other
Yeah.
person I was talking about that I had coached. And he was the first candidate I coached when we started.
Okay.
And I wanted to have him really make sure that people kind of wanted to dig into his work because his copy and some of the work he had done was good. But the way that he was presenting it was not getting the responses he wanted. Shortly thereafter, he did get a role. And so, sometimes you have to step away from your work and work with someone. So he kind of he hired somebody to do this, and somebody else said to me, but he's a writer, so what does it matter? Like, that's not his design.
But look at
Well,
how
it
visually
shows that-
engaging this is. My
It's
gosh.
engaging, and it shows
Yeah.
that he cares. And then
Yeah.
he worked with the illustrator to come up with something that would get people to dig in.
Yeah.
And it might just get the interview or the conversation started, right?
And he specified UX copywriter too as well.
Exactly. And we had to work on that a lot, work on how he was presenting the work to get the audience engaged. So if you have older work, what I would say is sometimes you just have to look at the other elements that you're trying to sell. They're there. Like, for an example, just a quick example in LinkedIn, I use my brother just because I've coached him a lot. So it's an easy thing for me to share, especially since he was like kind of out of the business a little bit for a bit and it was hard. And so in his LinkedIn, what he does is on his LinkedIn, I wanted him to be more engaging to his audience. And so remember, every space is an opportunity. You don't have to fill every space, but every space is an opportunity for you to, what's the word? For you to give information about who you are. So I'm just going to share his page. I keep telling him to change his picture, but I don't know if you could see, can you see it right now?
Yeah.
So I had him kind of at first just write he's really empathetic. I had him at first just write a few words like tall, empathetic, these things that would catch people for his soft skill set. And instead, he just put all the things he loves. Everybody from his daughters to Kurt Vonnegut to the New York Giants to chicken Parmesan. So it also shared his ability to capture attention, and he stood out as opposed to some random photo, right? So I just thought that was another important thing. So he had to utilize things because he didn't have as much new work as he wanted to. And so
that's so interesting because Jeff Greenspan and I were talking yesterday, and he was talking about what fuels his work. And so much of it was because I said, Jeff, do you do the same thing I do where you get so angry about something or you get so pumped up that you start to create? And that was what he does. That's where a lot of his hipster traps, a lot of those things came from. I feel anger is a great fuel if it's used properly. And what it is ultimately is, right, it's passion. So what this is so cool and does so well in a very simple way is it shows his passions. Even when I freelance for agencies and I don't have much time with a client, I will often ask at the end of a meeting, what do you not want? What do you hate? What work do you, what is the last thing on earth you want? Because that passion is going to be a South Star and point you in the opposite direction. It's going to make you realize passion's a wonderful thing because it gets the point across very quickly.
Yes. And they talked about it. Actually, it's interesting you say that, Sunita. It's really interesting that I went on a workshop the other day where I'm getting my education through something called OG Life Lab. You can all check it out. It's OJI Life Lab. It is through the Yale Center of Emotional Intelligence. I am not heady. I am street smart, not book smart. So I tell you that it is something good. It will help you. It will also, sidebar, these little things, which are not so little, you know, getting certified in things that OG Life Lab is not taking me a tremendous amount of time to learn about emotional intelligence, right? Equify, which is run by the Chief Talent Officer of Mother, is a certification he started a while ago for diversity, equity, and inclusion and culture. These things show that you, if you really care, if you don't, you know, anyone who's here, I know cares. So if you really care about things like this and about your, you know, your evolution in your career and as a human being, these are things that are also going to stand out. Like this person is like, again, those layers, right?
Yeah.
So I think, and so the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, they talk a lot about how creativity, and James was on that one, how creativity is sparked often by anger, frustration. You know, I'll say for me, it's sparked by resentment and fear and sadness. So, yeah, I think that's an important thing. And so moving along, what is
always love and fear? It's so fascinating, those two simple, but yeah, it's really what, and for an instance, from an acting background too, just again, empathy, what is built with your other side hustles, how that can play into presenting to clients, reading the room when a client is not happy or very happy and getting excited.
Right.
All of those things are wonderful qualities to have. Okay, great. So I'm going to get to the next question, which is, I am planning to go client side. Should the works included in my portfolio be different?
Kat, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends on it. So this question comes down to who is your audience, right? Like who, if you're trying to go client side, are you trying to work for, like Hillary mentioned, like Prudential? That's going to have a totally different, you know, portfolio to Casper, like totally different. So I would really ask myself and get clear, you know, what is that list of 5 to 10 companies who you would absolutely love to work for? What are the kind of products they create? If you are a designer and art director, what is the look and feel of those products? And, you know, then you'd want to show within, you know, your breadth of work, what relates or corresponds to those brands, because essentially those brands are going to be looking at either, you know, someone who can embody their aesthetic or someone who can make it even better. So really looking at what those brands look like and feel like. If you're a writer, what's the tone? Are you going for writing, you know, UX, some heavy UX copy and like website copy? Then I need to see that in your portfolio if that's what that brand side client does a lot of. If it's more, you know, you're a storyteller and you're making, you know, their in-house commercials, then I want to see storytelling and like powerful video. Yeah, so I think, yeah, it truly is just about your audience and asking yourself, okay, if I was in this client's shoes, like what kind of portfolio would I want to see where I'd say, oh yeah, I think this person could do this job.
Do you have clients with 2 portfolios? Like
Yes.
one tier? Okay.
Or they just change it as they go. They'll pull things in and out depending upon when we're sending, and they'll say, hold up, like don't, because if usually if they're using the same one, they might not want to send it out a lot that week because, well, not that there's like that much happening at the moment, but it is, I just want to say to everyone, it is picking up because for external recruiters to get information. So if you continue to do the work, and I'm telling you that we are getting things and it's happening. And so I just want to share that. The other thing I want to just say quickly about should the work be different, look at go online onto LinkedIn, put in the company name, see who's working there and where they worked before. Okay. Right before. And then you could look at where else they've worked, check out their portfolios, see what they're showing. And you will get, unless they've been there for a really long time, see if you can find people who just got hired, because then you'll know the team that's hiring them, and then see who the hiring managers are, because you might get an idea if they're at a certain level who the hiring managers are.
This is so good.
here.
We
There's
have so many questions. I love this. And this is so interesting too, acting wise, because if you're going to audition for like an NCIS, the headshot you send in is more of like a serious one versus like if you're going to audition for a comedy, your hair is going to be curlier and your hair. This is so very, and like you're saying, LinkedIn check, we all check our IMDb's to see what show the person
Yes.
was on before. Very,
Right.
very interesting, the similarities. So now we have the next question. Now that many offices have been remote only, are you seeing places more often open to hiring outside of their local areas? Very, very good question.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say that there's freelance is just gonna continue. This happened in 2001. It happened in 2008.
Mhm.
Freelance, and we already have heard all of the trends. The fortune telling. Is that what I'm about to say? The forecasting is that the gig economy is going to grow and grow and grow and grow. Right? That's just me. I like to fortune tell negative things, so I'm trying to change the tape in my head. Just one little tidbit: if you name it, you tame it. I just want to say, if you have a negative thought, name it, you tame it. But moving back, because that's where my brain goes, there is more freelance. Freelance is all remote for the most part. Although, for example, we placed somebody the other day who was an art director. He was on it, and then they wanted him to extend to do something, and it wasn't going to be remote, and he said no. So, I think freelance will definitely be something. I think there'll be some options. I think that it's something you should always ask for something. I always say, if please, can I curse? Can I drop some F-bombs? If you don't ask,
Yes.
you don't fucking get. It's just the bottom line.
I love that.
It's how
Yes.
you ask. It is not what you ask for. So use this expression. Without using this honesty against me, I want to work for your company, but I would be remiss not to ask, what are the options of me working remotely? And
Mhm.
if it's something I, just have to share it, and again, they might say no, especially if you're very loosey-goosey about it.
Mhm.
But if you're feeling like you don't feel like compelled, like you don't feel like you have to, not feeling a sense of like, oh, I need security right now, and there's no shame in that, like, then maybe just, say, okay, whatever, but ask. You don't ask, you do not fucking get. I always say, if you go to a restaurant, think of it this way. If you do not ask the hostess for the table you want, 9 times out of 10, and you might not care because you're not as like crazy as me, but I'm telling you, you will end up close to the bathroom.
Oh, wow.
every
This is such a
table-
good way to put it.
And every table,
Yes.
and every table thereafter will get further and further away from the bathroom. Some asshole
Yeah.
like me is going to ask for that table. I'm going to end up with your table, so ask.
And
I love that a
just
woman is saying this. It's so awesome because like I feel especially, and I don't know if you've noticed this a lot, but I have, and I've noticed in my culture too, but there is this fear of asking and rocking the boat and getting people upset with you because we are told as women or women of
yes.
color, do not
Yep.
upset anybody, go with the flow, take that bathroom table and be grateful for it.
be
Yes.
grateful, right, for what
Like,
you have.
And I grew up with a father who I adore. I love him madly. But let me tell you something. It took him actually only until I turned about 35 maybe, or I'm just giving you like in 30s. He would tell me when I'd raise my hand to talk to the waiter. I mean, it's crazy because he's like this very like charismatic. Oh, of course he's charismatic. He's charismatic, but he literally would tell me not to talk to the waiter or waitress. It blows my mind. And
Well,
it's
I just want to add too, for all those like really shy introverted people
Please.
out there,
introverts, yeah.
I am you. I am that person. I started recruiting terrified to pick up the phone. Like,
how did you do it? How did you move forward? How did you bite the
Just-
bullet?
just keep trying. Like, if you're afraid to ask that one time and you don't do it, okay, like give yourself a break. Don't beat yourself up about it. But the next time it comes up, just try it. Just try
Yeah.
what Hill said and say, I want to work for you, but in advocating for myself, I wanted to at least ask your question, because otherwise you're just missing out on an opportunity to get what you want.
Absolutely.
So
Right. But
just
we
keep
also
doing it.
I think, practice makes perfect, but somebody mentioned in the chat, which I think is really important. Louise, I don't know if I'm saying it right, or Lewis, please forgive me.
Louise.
Louise. Okay. we just did a panel today, at Allyship in Action. I think it's important to say that at the sideshow right now that, I'm a white woman. It's a hell of a lot easier for me to ask for what I want, right? I got a tremendous amount of privilege behind me. And so it takes practice, it takes work, it takes, and listen, I was born an introvert. I had to believe it or not, I was fucking born an introvert. That's insane. But when it comes to things that I feel confident in, I have no problem asking. And my mom passed when I was young. I was 14 years old. My dad got divorced. My parents got divorced when I was 5. Breast cancer 4 years ago, stage 3. I am fucking gonna ask, that's it.
Yeah.
And so we have to really work hard at it, especially people that don't have the privilege I have. And as it relates to work, right, and not the not the table at the bathroom. I think that we have to look at the stories, like Lewis said. Also, Luis, I'm going to ruin it. Sorry. Is the confidence that the conversations we tell ourselves, our family stories, right? We have to be really careful of how we grew up. For me, it was keep your mouth shut. You're too much. Not keep your mouth shut, but you're too much. You're too sensitive, Hillary. Shh, quiet down, quiet down. And as it relates to people who are people of color, of feeling like there's not enough space in the room. So I think that it's really important, if you have something to say, just make sure you just practice it, because there's no other way.
It's amazing how, to me, the more I have spoken to people this week where something life-altering has happened to them and they are just like, fuck it, I'm gonna live for today. It's gonna happen. Jeff Greenspan talked about this yesterday, how he got into advertising. He was held up at gunpoint, and it was just such a, I know, in his 20s. And I know, and it just got him on this, his interview is amazing, by the way, but it is amazing how those moments really make us go, yeah, I have a chance. It's my turn. We have another question. I'm gonna yell at this person. On the subject of portfolio, I'm not a huge self-promoter and prefer to let my work do the talking. How important is it to list awards on your site? I haven't won any huge awards, but I've been recognized here and there by the One Show, Cannes, Obies, Addies, Effies, etc. Is it better to include them or not? Really?
I mean, it is.
Okay.
So this is the thing. You could include, some people do this thing. And first of all, now what we talked about earlier this afternoon was awardism, right? That people are not, I had a woman I submitted, she had 1 bronze, and I promise to get to your question, but I have to say this out loud. I had one woman, she had 1 bronze lion the year before. The agency, the 2 men that ran the agency, were not the people I submitted the book to. It was a woman that I sent the book to. And because she probably feared their response, she said, I'm sorry, I'm not even going to present it to them, because they need to see more than 1, and it needs to be from this year. Now, as it relates, so that needs to change. Now, unless everyone in advertising is going to say, I'm not showing my awards, which I don't necessarily agree with, because I think awards are important, right? I think they show recognition. When my son he's 6 and my daughter's 8. When my son used to cry and say, but she beat me, or my daughter says she beat me when they run to the apartment, I'm like, well, then run faster. You're not all getting an award. That being said, less than 2% of the advertising population get a Cannes Lion, less than 2%. So think about how that is. Now, you earn those awards, put them on your goddamn resume. So what you can do is, instead of being the person that I've seen that lists literally a page full, all of the Effies, all of the Andies, all of the Addies, all of the One Show, just write, I've won Cannes Lions, I've won One Show, I've won this. You don't even have to put the dates next to it. Let them ask you questions. Because what happens is, for the people that had won an award 15 years ago, I would tell them just never to put the year up. Let people guess. And what I learned as a recruiter, do you know that I always thought that the merits were not that big of a deal? They were to me. Personally, I was like, oh, but I didn't think that the clients would respect it. Do you know how hard it is to get a merit? Do you know how hard it is to get a merit in a One Show, or to be acknowledged in the Lions at all? But what about the agencies that don't even they don't even enter. It's so goddamn so expensive. Excuse my language. It's so expensive to get in. So cost of entry is ridiculous.
It's so expensive. And that is actually one of the main reasons we did the sideshow, because like some
Well,
people
right,
don't
that's the
have
whole reason.
thousands of
Hello.
dollars. Yeah.
Woo!
This is why this needs to be promoted beyond measure, because, and then I'm so excited that you'll do an actual, like, I think that why it needs to be promoted is do not let awardism make you start to question your awards, nor do I think it is, but I'm just letting you know that you should say them. But you don't have to make it a page. That's all.
Yeah, and I would say, just noting it on like each project is nice, or if they're not in your current portfolio, then just list them on your about page, like Phil said. Yeah.
Yes.
But
I love
100%.
give
having
yourself
people
credit.
come to you.
Or to what somebody said, this is the other thing. I tell people, my brother, I told him to do this in his site a while ago. I don't know if he's updated it, but you know, Keith says, how much of the work did the person do, right? So there's certain agencies, like there was one agency that I grew up with, DeVito Verdi, and they had like 10 people would work on a campaign, and genuinely 10 people would talk, just like we're all talking today. And like somebody's going to ask a question today that's going to spark something that I'm going to learn, right?
Yeah.
Or that I didn't think to say. And it's going to
Yeah.
make me have a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, Keith thought of that. Why didn't I thought of that? I'm the one that's a 30-year veteran, but I need to put that away. And I think it's really important to say that you just could give people credit for it on your resume. And that makes it look like you're a collaborative person as well. So on your site, some people have actually had my collaborators, like they put it up top. So people can look at it, or on each piece of work you do, you could write who your partner was. If you're a creative director or you're more senior, you could say the team that worked with you on it, or what your responsibility was. Like, so were you managing the project, which is still a big part. Maybe the idea eventually came from the ideas under, leading up. But I think it's all important information.
Somebody had brought that up when we first started ad school. They were just like, I don't understand why we have to work with just one partner. Like, wouldn't it be better if we set it up like a Hollywood writer's room to just discuss things? And I was like, that's so interesting. I never even thought about it that way, but that's very fascinating to mention and it's a group discussion. Like you said, people might bring up, someone might have brought up a type of book, or maybe they were a philosophy major in college and they bring up somebody you've never heard of, but it's just, you're just learning from everybody, and it creates something amazing. So next question, I have a question about the best way to approach new potential agency clients and directors. We've kind of answered this. Is giving a cold call, email to the targeted audience the best way to get known?
Okay, Kat, why don't you pull up the deck for that one?
Kat's going, cold calling.
I love this question. I love questions about cold emailing. Okay, so first of all,
you even had it ready to go. She's like, yeah, girl, I got it.
Yes, like, please, we live in a digital world now, like, and so many more people, although they may be really busy and be teaching kids and have a lot on their plate, they are also in a way more accessible because they're on their computer a lot and maybe have a little more flexibility to just take a quick 10-minute, 20-minute call with someone they don't know. And like Hill was saying before, if you don't ask, if you don't reach out to that person, you will never gain anything, right? You will never connect with them. So, why not just reach out to them and introduce yourself and connect, because that's one more potential connection opportunity that you could have. So just to break this down, like if you're not sure, like, oh, I'm reaching out to someone I don't know, it feels weird, I feel like I'm asking them for something, first, just check in with yourself. Think about first how you want to be in this interaction. Like there's a being part and there's a doing part to sending the note. So if you're writing this note and you're like, oh God, I'm writing to this person and it feels awkward, like that's going to come through in your email and it's going to change your results. So make yourself a cup of tea, listen to some jams, like whatever you need to do to just feel like you're in a good place and be intentional about how you're reaching out. And then, simple structure. First, be human. There's a lot going on in our world right now. How are you? Hope you and your family are well right now. Just something. It doesn't have to be a whole, paragraph. Just how are you? And then I would start, an easy way to start is like give them a compliment and make sure it's an authentic compliment. Um, but you could say something as easy as like, "Oh, I saw you just won a sideshow award. Congrats." Like, "Wow, that was awesome." Or "I saw you just did this interview on a podcast," or "I saw you were in Forbes," or "You know what? I just came across your portfolio and I like that one piece you did." Just something. Or maybe if they're a strategist and you see, oh, they worked at this place and they had something interesting to say on their LinkedIn. Just pick something personal and authentic.
You know what's so funny? A long time ago, I had read this. This was like right out of coming out of ed school. Somebody was like, if you like 'cause internet, everyone's birthday's on the internet, whatever. They're like, if you find out their birthday, send them a birthday card in the mail. And I was like, holy crap. Like, it's like because I had an internship at Hallmark a long time ago when I was junior in college, but I was like, what a freaking way to stand out, because like at Hallmark, that's when like everyone was like, no one's sending cards anymore. And it was like getting a card in the mail, there's just nothing like it. But I was like, that's freaking like, it's not, I don't think it's that creepy. I mean, anyone could just like look up your birthday and then it's like you get a birthday card, happy birthday. Like, so, I don't know. I just like, that's a really freaking like different way to stand out. But yeah, I agree too with what you were saying about the energy and the intention of like when you send it. It's almost like if you're asking someone out on a date or something like that, you want to make sure that you're centered. By the way, it's totally okay for a girl to ask a guy out on a date. So let's calm down about that. But you just the person being centered in who they are and confident, and really even just taking that moment to breathe before they send that email, the intention. For me, the times I've been freaked out to send that email, it's like you really just have to sit down and tell yourself, this is out of a good reason. You're doing something to help yourself, to help a company, and then to send that email. That's kind of like my method behind the email.
Yeah, I think the other thing is, I remember when I was young, my dad had said to me, my first job was at Kirschenbaum and Bond, which is now.
Yeah, I know Kirschenbaum.
I can't even say it. I couldn't say Kirsch. I answered the phone at Kirschenbaum and Bond. My dad had said to me when I was looking for a job, I was right out of college, and he said, put your resume, because back in my day, it was mailing. I mean, we were mailing our fucking resumes. Like, it was crazy. That's how old I am right now. I was mailing my resume, and he said, how did you know, Keith? Are you coming to other workshops of mine? So
that's from Legally Blonde. Is it
and
scented?
First of all, Keith, it was hot pink paper. It wasn't even pink. But he said, put it on a colored paper, pink paper, and white papers, it's going to stand out. Oh, Keith, I love you. I feel like I have
do you know they tell us the same thing when we used to send our headshots out? They would say, don't just send it in a manila envelope, send it in a pink manila envelope, something that's going to stand out.
Yes, 100%. And what I told a candidate once who was in the music business, I told her to send her resume out in an 8-track cassette tape.
Oh.
Because I felt like, even though it's like a little bit, different, I just said, you never know. And you could also go online and find out, if you go online and you do some real digging, you can find out what people's interests are, because they might even share in LinkedIn what their groups are, or what
their Instagram. Yeah. All those things.
Yeah, look at their Instagram.
I have a Labrador too. Like, his name is such and such. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Or you could just, you could be really creepy about it, but you could be creepy in a way where you're saying, listen, my intent is not to be creepy.
I love that beginning.
Just say
call it out.
Call it out before they could say it. 100%.
Yes.
Call it out. All right, keep going.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of ways to introduce and take the pressure off, I think, this initial email. And then with that, you just want to be really clear, simple. Like, this is who I am. This is what I'm up to. This is what I'm looking for. Like, I'm a freelancer, a freelance designer. I've been doing a lot of branding lately. And you know what? I'm looking to, work for a startup, or I'm looking to connect with someone who does more digital, like whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. Can we share the longer one? Will you share the next?
Yeah. You know what? I'll show. Yeah. So this is just an example.
Oh, yay. I wanted that. Yeah.
Yeah. Screenshot it. This is being recorded. You'll get this. But yeah, just a simple structure. And look, like, I put my being word on here. I think it kind of comes through in the note. Your being word here might not be grateful. It might be different. It might be funny, it might be joy, that'll change the tone of this. But this is just a letter like saying, hey, I came across your Ad Age Creativity, feature, huge fan. Here's a specific piece. This is what I've been doing. I'm looking to transition to this. And then just acknowledging, like, I'm sure you're someone who's really busy, but you know what? As you're someone I respect, I couldn't help but ask, would you be willing to chat for a few minutes, like via phone or Zoom? And I think it's good to give them an option. Like, not everyone's going to want to be on Zoom right now. When we're back in person, you could offer like phone, Zoom, or coffee. Like, take the pressure off a little bit where they're like, oh God, I have to have coffee with this person.
Remember, right. If you
Um,
don't ask, if you say to them, listen, we had reached out to a bunch of people about Perk, right? And one of them was about the outplacement idea to offer severance, career coaching to the creative industry specifically, as opposed to these enormous conglomerates. And I had to reach out to CEOs and CCOs and COOs and asking them what their opinion was about it. And I wrote in the thing, if I don't ask you, I will regret. I will always regret that I didn't reach out.
Yeah.
And I think again, it's, and if, you're always sharing that empathy for their time, obviously, and being compassionate for their time. But also saying like, I just had to reach out because if I didn't, I would always question myself that I didn't. I need to do the work, and this is part of my work. And so reach them on a human level.
Isn't it funny how telling the truth, which is the easiest thing, is
Ah.
sometimes the hardest thing? And you're trying to find other
Yes.
ways to say it and other ways to put it and other ways to come at it. And then it's just like, well, why don't I just say, what's the truth here?
Right.
And then it just kind of solves everything. So,
100%.
yeah.
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 And then, and then just close it out. Thank you for your time. Everyone loves to hear that. And, give them just another like compliment or something nice.
Yeah.
Sandwich your request with a compliment. And at the very least, you were very kind and gave this person a bunch of compliments that I'm sure probably lifted their day. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm big on condiments. I wanted to open a restaurant once called Condiments.
I'm a huge kind of and I save all the little things from like the Japanese restaurants and the takeout. We get like all those sauces and stuff because Indian spices are so different than, Jamaican jerk spice. Yeah. I got like a whole thing of creepy condiments in my fridge. So Luis is on a roll.
Condiment girl.
I really am. Luis is on a roll. We have thoughts on hiring people to write your resume, build your portfolio, write your LinkedIn. I know we've spoken about this before, Hillary. I thought it was disingenuous, but I've had people argue strongly for it, somewhat convincingly. And follow up, I can't stand when people have their social written for them. Totally fake, not authentic portfolio or resume. I could imagine, but it still feels weird. Double follow up, didn't realize they were already answering this. Did you already kind of answer this?
We did, but I want to just remark to the part where you say, and first of all, I want to applaud you for being authentic and real and transparent and saying, I can't stand when people do it. This is my feeling though. And this is empathy, right? What if they just really are anxious about doing it, want to make sure they're perfectionists, they're extremely, like when I say anxious, I mean like I have generalized anxiety disorder through and through. I had panic attacks as a kid. I counted a lot. If I didn't count, somebody was going to die. Like there were real things. I'm not that person anymore, thankfully. But it's really important to think and not get caught up in other, when you see other people's things. I compare and despair all the time. And in your case, like when you're looking at other people's things, just stay on your side of the street. The other thing I'll just add about, I promote people. I had somebody do my resume. I would have somebody do my portfolio, and I had someone do my LinkedIn. I was too close to it. I couldn't do it. And I needed somebody who had the experience and the expertise. Like, think about it. You know what to do when you go to the gym. I mean, do you really need somebody to spot you all the time? And yet, I'm not saying the first gym, the first training session when you're 22. I'm not talking about the one maybe when you're 28. But when you hire that trainer for I have weight issues my whole life. When you hire that trainer for the 50th time, really, are they spotting you? No, it's because they're keeping you on track. They actually do know more than you do. We think they don't, but they do. And they keep us consistent. With the resume though, and the portfolio and the LinkedIn, it's about keeping you on track, and they know what people want to see. They have the SEO stuff, and they will think you are so close to it that it's helpful. And you know what, Louis? If you don't need it, Louise, then that's phenomenal. Some people genuinely need it. And so don't spend your money on what you need, which you don't need. That's all I would say.
It
Yeah.
reminds me of like when friends offer to write your dating profile for you.
Uh,
It's almost like, because your friend will be like, yeah, you do this all the time. And you're
Mhm.
like, no, that's not me. I
Right.
don't. And they're like, no, remember this, this, and this. And you're like,
Right.
maybe you should write my profile for me because I'm just way too close to me, you know?
Yeah, and people know you. Listen, my number one match on JDate when I was on JDate, and my brother went on only for a week. My number one match was my brother. So I just had to share. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Okay, moving
Yeah.
on. Just for a little comedic time.
Yeah. Well, and
Oh my
I
gosh.
just want to respond, Louise. Thank you for your authenticity. Yeah, like I think there is something about that, like having shame, like, oh, I'm not good enough to do my own stuff. But like think about like that's why brands hire agencies. Like
Right.
they're too close to it. They can't see like the bird's eye view. So when you have someone come in and like looking at the big picture, they can kind of point out, hey, like you've got this other skill set. And you're like,
Oh
oh,
yeah, I do have that going for me.
oh
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like someone else to also lift you up, you know, and
So
support you in that process.
we have our next question, which is anonymous attendee. How do you handle if you have worked on, how do you handle it if you have worked on a category or brand but haven't made any portfolio worthy work for it, especially if you see a job for that category, example, beverage or CPG? This is very helpful question because asking about brand and actual, because Jeff and I were talking about this yesterday and I was like, surely you can't just make your portfolio only side project. I mean, you could, but they also want to see you've worked with certain brands. So
Right.
take it away.
I just want to, there's one comment or, oh, it's going to come up. So Consiglio, it will come up. How do you handle if you've worked on a category brand, but haven't made any portfolio worthy work for it? Okay. First of all, I would say send your portfolio that you think is not worthy and ask Catherine or I. And then you could ask some peers, because I have found that some people think it's not worthy. They're like, it's absolutely not worthy. There's no way it's worthy. It's terrible. And I'm like, I don't agree with you, but okay. And they think the other work that's worthy, I'm like, listen, move that out, put this in. But that being said, if you see a job for that category, you could, if you don't have worthy work, I want you to look at the success of the work, right? So let's say it's for a piece of work that you did and it's the success of it was, let's say if it's social, it had X amount of hits. It had, if it's, a campaign, it brought more, let's say it's for hotel, if you're talking beverage or CPG, like whatever it may be, the success of it is what you could share. And you could make it a little bit of a story too. You also have to just look at the work and it's how you tell the story. So can you take and clip edits? Can you make like almost like a sizzle reel of it? And then they could ask you like, where's the work? And you could say, you know what? The client did not take the work. Sometimes you have what we used to call like the director's spot versus the client's chosen spot. And some candidates used to choose that. But this day and age, we don't have that choice because it's much more than just TV and print. But I would really, truly say, come up with something interesting if you can. If not, show clear success rates on it if you can. And that would be my initial response. I'm sure Kat has some more ideas.
Yeah, and like even if you don't have experience in a specific category, it's kind of like that Venn diagram I showed. Like ask yourself, okay, like maybe if you're a writer, like the tone of this beverage is similar to maybe this comedic work that I did, and they're actually aligned, even though it's not the same product.
Right.
Um,
Like car and beauty cat, right?
Right. Like, and with art directors, like we work on, I feel like I've worked on so many like car brand, like art director, creative director jobs. And I'm always looking at also like fashion beauty people for that, or like jewelry, because it's that luxury eye for a like luxury automobile. So get creative too with where you're seeing connections in the creative itself.
Yeah.
That's something, yeah.
Look at the tone. Sorry, Sunita.
No, I was
Yeah.
going to just say that was something I really noticed when I had worked on Escada, and this was a very long time ago, but it was the first time I had really been introduced to working on fashion. And a friend of mine who had worked on fashion had mentioned to me, just to let you know, in the world of fashion, because it's going to be very different than the Heineken and the other things you're working on, the photographer is pretty much considered what the art direction is. They're so into who the photographer is in the fashion world. And that was such a big learning life lesson for me working in that world of fashion, how important that photographer you choose is, because that's the literal POV, the lens that you are looking at that brand through. That's going to influence who you choose to be your models, who you're going to choose not to be your models. It was an eye-opening experience to work in high fashion.
Yeah. Editorial. So editorial is most often, and fashion, very often is an art director is, they're producing the shoot, they're making their hot, it's the photographer, to your point. And it's an interesting thing I had to learn along the way when art directors from that world were telling me that they were art directors. And I said, in your world, you're in advertising, it's not as, it's conceptual. They're more designers in a way, a visual designer versus an art director. For me, they're conceptual, but not in a way where we're using a lot of language.
Yeah, and it was really fascinating as a copywriter, because I'm just like fashion schmash, and I was very much, it was very like me, Devil Wears Prada attitude, like what, but not it was Anne Hathaway's character, but I was like, what does it matter which coffee cup are they holding or this? And it makes all the difference in the world. So that was a really big lesson I learned. And we were also shooting with Ellen von Unworth, and we ended up, she wanted to get more into videos, so we were shooting more videos, and this was like forever ago. But I had written dialogue for these cute little stories about these models and like going out for the evening, and you end up with your little black dress because you were going to try something else, but you always end up with the first thing you tried on. It's like little fashion truisms. And I was like, yeah, I'd written dialogue for them. And then you realize, you get to set and you realize a lot of models can't act. So the lines were very stilted, awkward, strange, and you just didn't know what to do. And the moral of that story was it was solved all in voiceover with people looking phenomenal. So that's their job, is to look phenomenal. And those ladies certainly did it, but voiceover solved it for us in the end of these little story tells. So Consiglia, we have where and how do you find the right person to do this for you? So this is SEO, portfolio, resume, and LM. Right. I remember you were talking about SEO folks that because I was like, I don't know if I have time to learn SEO.
Yeah.
So
one of the things we realized is this, there's a little plug for Perk here, but then there's also something else. So I paid a lot of money for somebody, I wouldn't say a lot of money, but I paid more money than our coaching program. So individual coaching costs more. And when we realized what we were charging for individual coaching, especially now, was too much for what the industry could afford and the people in the industry could afford, Catherine really was like, let's just do group coaching, and then it's much more affordable. But so what somebody would pay me for like a couple of hours, they can get in like 9 hours. And so what we now do is, and I recommend to all of our candidates to try to do it on your own first. And what we have are now examples. Okay. But if I'm talking to a creative director that wants to go client side, I could still do a session on resume and LinkedIn and all of that through our group coaching. However, if you want like a whole other layer, we have the names, we have experts that we could share with you. They're more expensive, but they're doing all the work. So if you say, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, the way that we work, like with the people that we coach, and through group coaching is like, it's sort of a collaborative process. Like you're really doing a lot of the heavy lifting of like actually writing the resume, actually changing things on your portfolio. But we're like walking through it with you and guiding you through that process. And then what Hill's talking about are our affiliate people who we recommend, who are like experts at like writing the resume, and they will do it all for you. They will do your LinkedIn, that kind of thing. So it just depends on kind of what you need. But
so we have another question now. We have a weird question from Keith. I had a weird question about what if I love the ad industry is my side hustle, meaning I'm obsessed with the industry and I know more than a lot of people that I meet in the industry. And also, I'm so ADD, I like everything and I'm interested in them. Too many side hustle ideas. This is so me. I'm a Gemini. Also,
Same.
I heard having LinkedIn on your Twitter bio is a great way to be noticed, and recruiters are searching there now for talent. Is that true? Second, I'm over 35 years old. How dare you? And looking for a junior copy position. How honest should I be or bring up that in an interview? Focus on telling an interview or talent manager. That's a great question.
You want to go first, Kat? You want me to?
So Keith, yeah, I mean, I've had so many side hustles throughout my life. It's ridiculous. I still have side hustles. Um, yeah, I mean, I think you just need to follow like what you're interested in. I feel like throughout my career, I've done what's I call just following the thread, like there might be some times where you're like, yeah, like right now, I think I want to work full time in an agency. And then maybe there are other parts where you're like, nah, I think I just want to do that like as a side freelance thing, and that's fine for me. So I think it's really just about self-reflection and like also accepting that it's totally okay to say, yeah, I'm going to shift gears now. Like I think we are starting to finally normalize that in our industry and like our society. It's like, yeah, you know what? I did this for a few years. Now I'm going to change to this thing. Now I'm going to add this thing on the side. Actually, now I'm going to take it out.
Mhm.
Just do what feels right to you. So,
Yeah, I mean, this thing about, ageism, right? It's a real thing. So let's not ignore it. I'm glad that you brought it up. And the old me would say that I would not have submitted you for a junior copywriter position, right? I need to be completely honest and transparent and say that what I did was based upon what my clients expected of me, because I work on contingency. I've never really made much of a salary, if anything. And I'm basically commission, and I had to do what I was told, right? I wasn't, and even internal recruiters, they too are faced with this problem because the hiring managers, and this is what we need to work on as an industry, dictate what they want to see. So it's about us pushing back. And I am finally, after 30 years, I'm pushing back. And so I still might get a no. And those are the agencies that I don't know that they'll change. They have legacy thinking that doesn't legacy thinking, right? Let's think about Mad Men again. It's thinking that may have worked and been successful, but it's not successful in a world's view, right? It's successful monetarily, but not in a diversity or inclusive way as far as it relates to ageism or racism or any of the protected classes. And some agencies do it well. But in the case of now submitting yourself as a junior copywriter, there are some agencies that are so open to this kind of thing. I had an agency once, and my colleague at K and Black, she placed the role. They wanted a like graffiti artist. They wanted somebody, even Wyden and Kennedy, right? One of the most well-known, best agencies in the world. They don't necessarily hire everybody from the ad industry. They just want really talented people. So let's say you are like an amazing poet, right? If you were going in as a junior and you submitted like all your poetry, or you just created a story for them that was so unique, those are the places that will consider it. There's just not enough of them. I'm going to be completely transparent, but I say go for it. Like, and I think it's about how you showcase your side hustles. Like maybe your portfolio is, instead of your clients, think about it this way: each client, like on a portfolio, would be a different side hustle. And you can say like, I love so lately I say I want every partner in my life to be interesting and interested, right? The people that I'm in touch with. And so interested and interesting, think about that, right? On the top of your thing. And then ready to pick one. And so like maybe you have a copywriting box, but then maybe you have, another side hustle box, and maybe there's only 4, but they're all your side hustles, and that's your portfolio. And that's just one idea. There's so many ways to market yourself and make yourself your brand. But don't settle if you're interested.
And
So I go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I just want to add, like, I have a lot of candidates who have come from another industry or who did something for one part of their life and now they're moving into copywriting in this industry or design. And I think it's a lot about like confidence in yourself and just nourishing that. And if you're like, yeah, I'm going to write, like I'm going to get a job at, at this agency, like, and you connect with people and keep presenting yourself, like I know a lot of people who have transitioned and done that. I mean, I did that myself in my career. Like I interviewed at agencies and they were like, yeah, you're probably going to have to start as a creative coordinator, because I didn't have official recruiting experience. And somehow I inched my way in. Granted, I was younger at that age. But I can tell you like so many candidate examples of people who've done it and who've just kind of like also joked about it and owned it. Like, yeah, I'm 35 or like I'm 40. I want to be in advertising. Like, I'm here. And they've kind of made it part of their story too.
This is both men and women who have done this?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I was going to ask you this. You're answering pretty much my exact question, which was what examples of people who were totally not ad people, getting into the ad industry, if you had any off the top of your head.
Yeah. There's one in particular that I'll share. It's a candidate recently. It is a male and it is a white male, but I'm going to share it, right? And I don't think this particular agency, which is not, I don't think they're privately owned. I think they're publicly owned.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would have made the hire regardless, right? I think no matter who the person was, it was about how the person shares their experience. But there is a little bit of a but that happens. He was and probably still is. He owns a rock climbing company.
Okay.
And he had a lot of soft skills for that, right? He had to really organize. He had to have a lot of patience. He had to make sure everybody was safe. He had to develop a plan and a system for which he, put his things together.
Yeah.
And the agency hired him. He applied for a project manager role and he got it. He had no prior experience, to my knowledge, in advertising at all. He now wants to be an art director and is looking. They haven't transferred him over, and I have to be honest, he's good. And I think it's just a matter that they need to either hire other people that have been doing it longer, maybe, or maybe they are trying to diversify the industry a little, become a little more inclusive in that way. And he needs a little more experience. Maybe they feel he's got to put in a couple of more,
right.
Some more time.
Yeah.
But there are companies. Especially if you do the research on soft skills. Imagine if you made a resume that was just soft, like you got to be really creative about it. Let's say you made a resume of just soft skills, and that's all you did. You were like, funny. And then you put next to it, you figured out, you took the job that you're applying to, or a job, like you look up jobs online, right? That are for art director, strategist, copywriter, and you put next to each soft skill, how it applies to that hard skill, right? And at the bottom, it may say prior experience. And you may say, I'm not jaded. I have no experience. That's the best part about me. But you can make something funny about it. Listen,
oh, yeah.
And they might need experience, and they're not all going to go for it. But it's certainly better than just coming in with a regular resume and saying, I want to be an art director, right? I'm sorry, because we can get 100 of them.
That's so creative. Yeah, no, that's really fun
and interesting, and interested in their work and know what they're doing and what they're doing. Why do you even want to work there? Some people just say, where do you want to work?
Yeah.
And they would list 10 places they want to work, until I literally was in the business for 15 years. And I finally said, and this is when business got a little bit harder. I said, where do you want to work that will see your work and see an alignment, right? And then learn to push back on that question. You know what? Yeah. Now I would do it differently. Where do you want to work and what do you think it is about your work or you that you think will make a good fit? Right. Yeah. And being really real, everybody's got to just get, especially if you're an introvert, it's so hard. And you know what Sunita has done, and that I think is so important. And a woman in our office, Laura Benetti, she's now at Oculus recruiting. She took Sunita Upright.
Citizens Brigade. Yes. UCB.
Yeah, yes, but it's called
Improv.
Thank you. My memory is very bad right now.
Way to improv.
I'm street smart, not book smart. So there's a connection between things lately for me. I'm not doing well in my memory. Please forgive me. But improv is a really good way for introverts to get really uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm scared to
Yeah.
do it. Like, I think I want to do it, but I am not doing it anytime soon. But it is a really great way for you to get comfortable with those, like, and get interesting about that stuff.
Yeah, and I've taught improv at various ad agencies. I've taught it at Gyro, I've taught it at McGarry, but yeah, improv has taught me every single thing. And the joy, I've taught at Miami Ad School in New York,
Yeah.
the joy of seeing the introverts particularly come out of their shells.
Oh,
So
yeah.
nerve-wracked for that 8 week, after 8 weeks you get your show. And all of them end up doing so well. I'm so proud of them. And I have a lot of daydreams where I just like remember how much like just joy, pure joy to see they've all done so well. They've all gone to such great agencies. So really that palpable joy to see them go forward has been, that's
And you help
improv is
them
amazing.
also in their interviews moving forward. It's probably helped them in client meetings. It's helped them in so many ways, I'm sure.
It manifests in every way, shape,
big
and form.
time.
It really does. And to that simple thing of yes and, I mean, people think improv is only about jokes, but actually the truth of improv is we do improv every day. I always said, like, if you're about to go take the subway and that subway is closed that day, you decide to take a cab instead or whatever. That is you improvising. All improvising is just reacting and yes-anding to the moment to go forward. And so we have our last question, again from Luis. Geez, you're on fire. If we are hired to do a lot of pitching work, how do we show that? Is it weird? Because one of the best projects I ever did was for a pitch. Oh, I feel you on that one. And we didn't win the business, but that work can be really hard. So when you do it well, it feels like an accomplishment and it clearly has value, but that's not always client published, true, and NDAs, especially when you do it as a freelancer, because the work evolves after you've left the project. Very true.
So basically with this one, what I would say is, Louis, can you just put in the chat quickly, was it not produced, but do you have it and it's not produced? Like, can you show it at least? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, are you allowed to show it?
Yes,
I have pieces
okay.
of it, yes.
Okay. So what I would do is I would most certainly show it, or I would show somebody that just to make sure that they're aligned with the fact that, like, it's definitely something that will add value to the book. If you feel strongly about it, I say show it, especially if it's like, it doesn't need to be produced to show well. I'm sure what you're saying is it just wasn't put out into the world is what I think you're saying. And I personally don't care. You know how many things win at the award shows that are only done for the award shows purpose? Like, that they actually have silos within agencies that I learned this only just a few years ago that are solely put together for the award shows. Between us and Kate, don't say I said it. So think about it that way, right? People putting work in their book. It just because it's produced. Yes, that adds value. Yes, it's important to know that you went on a shoot. It depends upon what they're looking for. When I look at a book and somebody says, well, I have all this work. I've worked for 10 years. Okay. How many people have you managed? Right? If you want that title, how many people have you managed? How well are you with other people? How many shoots have you been on? Like, do you know have you worked with vendors? Can you do all of that? I think that there's other elements of that, but as far as like just seeing the kind of work you can do, as long as it's not for, like, when I went to ad school, the reason I didn't become a copywriter was because I couldn't even do kryptonite with steering wheel lock. And every other ad when I came out, for every candidate that I looked at, most of them were tattoo parlors. So if it's not for something, if you're going to do a tattoo parlor, if it was for a tattoo parlor, I'd say it has to be really interesting, right? If it's a pitch that was just really good, I don't care. Just show me some work that's going to make me think.
Yeah. And Luis is saying, so you're a strategist. And so, yeah, like, make it a freaking awesome case study.
Yeah. You get a blessing there. You're off. So you just like have fun. You can have a lot of fun with that. As far as a strategist goes, one little side thing I want to mention is that as being a part of an organization called AIR right now, it's called Allies in Recruiting. One of the things that a gentleman shared, he's been the recruiter for Goodby for many, many, many years. I think he left to maybe go to Google for a little while. He said that he travels to high schools around the country to get strategists. He goes to high school debate teams and he watches them to find really amazing strategists, which I just think is such a beautiful thing. And I just wanted to share that, like, for those of, even if you, like, for example, we were talking before about just this, like, You could take classes doing something that adds an element to what you already do, right? So if it's what Sunita was talking about at Upright, or if it's just even an emotional intelligence course,
Yeah.
or something like that, again, why you're different than, like my father used to say, if I have he's a lawyer, he says, if I have two candidates submit their resume, this is when I was young and I was looking for a job, and one of them, and they only got resumes, right? And they look, the resumes are identical. They went to the same law schools, they had similar, internships. But one of them writes that they love the New York Knicks and the other one writes nothing. He said, I'm going to hire whoever the New York Knicks fan is.
Yeah.
Or if one of them says that they volunteered for, motherless, for kids in bereavement, he's going to hire that one because he's close to that. Right. So you want to find a connection always.
Yeah.
Make sure.
An absolute authentic. Yeah. And just, again, it's like dating. It's the best ones go when you just be yourself,
Yeah.
So we are gone all the way through. Oh, we got another one. Oh my gosh, we're almost done. Okay. Last question. I've poured my heart and soul into crazy creative cover letters. I'll optimize cover letters, short and snappy, to the point cover letters that work in the agency's values. Do you actually read them? Does anyone care?
So we are actually going to be doing something surrounded by AI, and for our marketing for our company, because I think that it's just, we talk about like ghosting, right? Like imagine being we talked about being like a bot, a bot buddy, right? Like you make buddies with the bots. I would say that a cover letter is important to have because some companies request it, right? I want you to think about it as an about me and a really unique about me, right? And one way you could do a cover letter, just to get really creative, is do a stream of consciousness on the question that they're asking. If they do ask a question, if the cover letter, I always say also, for somebody like me, I don't bottom line. I have a hard time with it. So remember when I got my master's degree, I needed to have a beginning, like where I came from, where I'm at now, and where I want to go. And I think that's an important way for you to really think about your cover letter. So instead, I want you to start changing the direction, much like networking should be changed to relationship building. I want you to change your tape in your head from cover letter to storytelling. Here, examples of thought starters, right?
This is actually for like an interview sort of elevator pitch, like tell us about yourself. But I think it's super relevant as well for like a cover letter structure. It's kind of similar.
Yeah, it's really important. I think that if you shift your thinking, as opposed to having this thing I have to do, and it's so, like cover letters also, it's like, do I really need a cover letter? Like I've thought the same thing, because it also just feels like more work. Like why can't my resume speak for itself? Well, it's another opportunity for you to be creative, right? Even if you're not a typical creative, right? And you're an account person, or you're an admin, or you're just getting into the industry. I think it's really important for you to just share your story. So think about it in terms of storytelling versus cover letter.
That's very, very
and
helpful.
I just want to note, like, if I was to choose where to spend my time and energy, truthfully, the cover letter is not what I would recommend. I would recommend writing an amazing, just really personal, authentic cold email to a person you want to connect with. And I'd say if you're looking to get a job somewhere, usually connecting with the person who's in maybe your role, but one level senior, is the person at that company you want to reach out to before you reach out to HR and recruiting, because then you're going to build a relationship with that person, find out more information about the company, if you even want to work there, if the secret things that only that person would know, and you're building a relationship with a potential teammate, and then go have them refer you to the recruiter. So that way you can just send in your resume, and your cover letter is kind of just like they're sending in.
I mean, I learned so much about this doing this for the sideshow. We were cold reaching out to everybody on LinkedIn. And when we were cold reaching out to folks, we made sure I personalized every single reach out to these amazing judges. I mean, we had people Mother White and I mean, Shia, I mean, just people who I was so intimidated by to reach out to, but I made sure, but when I did, to find out a little bit about them. And of course, LinkedIn, if you're not friends with them on LinkedIn or connected, are you like get this much to write? So
Right.
boy, did those pithy copywriting skills really have to come in. You know, who else do I mention that's already a part of this that's interesting enough for them to be like wanting to associate with? Because it's like going to a party. You want to know who else is coming. You know,
Right.
who, are the other cool kids coming? Yes, they are. Here they are with their other names. Oh, if they're doing it, I'll do it too. There's
Right.
just so much strategy behind that.
Yeah.
So, but that was definitely like reach out 101. Like, and I started in advertising cold calling people. So that was definitely a lesson. So we're at an hour 30. Oh, how cute. Very great, playful greyhound next to you. To end it on a positive note, and because starting this off, we were all about mental health, especially during this time of quarantine, especially when creatives can get very anxious and depressed, and especially with dealing with the issues of ghosting. What would you say to keep our creatives like, upbeat, happy, feeling good about themselves? Do you have any insights to on our ending note to add about ghosting and just that process and how to take care of your mental health during that time?
Kat, you want to start, and
Yeah.
then I'll just I'll come after.
Yeah, I would say the first thing is like just catch yourself, like Hill was saying before, catch yourself creating stories in your head
Mm,
of what's going on with them, how you're wrong because they didn't answer, how your work is terrible. Like, notice that tape. And when you're creating a story, when you don't have the information to confirm
yeah.
any of that. So just catch it, because it can really start to pull you down and really, affect your mental health. And I've been there. I've definitely reached out to people and been like, well, that's it. They hate me. Nope, never. So just catch that and just have some grace with yourself and take care of yourself. And I think the other thing is, you know, I don't condone ghosting, especially when you have gone through rounds of interviews and hours and you've spent time talking to
Hours.
people and then you
Hours.
don't get a response. Like, in my heart, I think that's wrong. But at the same time, I empathize with the the recruiting team or the company on the other side in knowing that they had I don't know how they get through their inbox every day. Like, it's quite overwhelming, the amount of just
Mhm.
like thousands of things they get. And they're trying to take care of their mental health and like their families and their
Yeah.
team. And so just have some empathy for the other end. Again, I'm not saying that it's okay, but just know there's a human on the other end too, and they're not perfect. And if you go through that situation, like, the company has to know that if they ghost you after many rounds of interviews, they've probably burned a bridge. Um, and so that's probably not a place you want to work. And that's unfortunate. But then I would say take care of yourself and just don't take it personally and just move on to the next one, and keep going, because yeah, keeping that with you, making up stories, it's not going to be helpful for you.
Mhm. And
Um,
we're creatives. We can make up a really good story
yes.
against ourselves, can't we? Boy,
Yeah.
oh boy. Boy,
Um,
oh boy.
I think the other thing, there's a couple of techniques that I think are really important. One that I always talk about is, first of all, regarding empathy, right? One of the reasons we have empathy is so that we are saving ourselves. We're protecting ourselves also when we have empathy, right? When I have empathy for someone else, sometimes it's impossible to have empathy for someone else, right? There's something you're
Yeah.
so hurt by, or you're so angry at,
Yeah.
or you're so resentful towards, right? And that could be in the job market, most definitely. But when I'm really resentful, what I'm also doing is I'm finding compassion for them, but I'm also reducing my anger. I'm also reducing my resentment, and I'm keeping my side clean, because then I don't write out of anger. Somebody wrote out of anger towards me on LinkedIn yesterday, and I just like, I know that I am all in all 95% I respond to people. I've gotten worse as I've become a mother, as my responsibilities have increased. But for the most part, if I see your email, I will respond. If it's on LinkedIn and I've missed it, I won't. I just won't. And that's probably what happens to internal recruiters. They probably it gets down. So I would say two things. Okay. Well, a couple things. First of all, definitely rewrite them if you haven't heard back. I'm going to also share something from a personal experience, and I know this is recorded and it's okay, that when this first started, COVID, and for the first time ever, we had to remove, everyone went from permanent to freelance for the first time in decades. I had to consider looking for another job. I have been with Leslie for 20 years, and I had an interview. I had an interview with the head of recruitment for one of the largest, for a chief talent officer position for one of the largest charter schools in the country. And he then sent me to, after my interview, to the associate director of recruiting. And they don't share information with each other, which I think is beautiful because they can't be biased against each other's opinions. I wrote one of the things I like to write. I can't write ads for shit, but I can definitely write. And I wrote two really great, personalized emails to them. I then received a automated response. They told me at the end of the second interview that I would hear back from them, and that next rounds, if I were to move to next rounds, it would be with the CEO of the company. So to go from possibly meeting with the CEO of the company to getting an automated response, not even I don't even know that it was Dear Hillary. And I don't think, and it was just literally had nothing to do with me. It was just a copy and paste. And listen, I've done copy and paste, but then I make them personalized to a certain degree.
Right.
And at the very least, I say, listen, I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're okay right now.
Checking in. Yeah.
There's listen, I'm guilty of, but not if somebody goes on all these interviews.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's just not, it's not okay. But that's because somebody's already, especially like, so if you're just doing a submission and you don't hear back, I beg of you, try not to take it personally. But if you've gone on interviews, it's bad agency practice. And I would say maybe they're just again, this is rejection is the universe's protection sometimes. I know that sounds a little spiritual right now, but sometimes you just have like dodged a bullet sometimes. So
yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. And I just want to note too, like, if let's say you just submitted stuff or you're in a round of interviews, like, please follow up. Don't be afraid to follow up. Like, give them some space, give them like a week, 2 weeks. That is totally an acceptable amount of time to just say, hey, just checking in. I'm sure there's no update, but I just wanted to check in.
Yeah.
And if I don't hear from you, I'll check in again in a week.
Yeah, you can move along with the process. And last but not least, it's really important to there's something called an evidence for and an evidence against list, right? I learned it when I got my master's.
Yeah.
It's in cognitive behavioral therapy. So there's two different tools. One is evidence for and evidence against, and the other is tapping, which I've learned recently.
Tapping.
I'm educated in tapping. I am, but I learned it recently for like a minute, and it definitely can work. So evidence for and evidence against quickly is, I'm never going to get a job as a thought, right? Or they don't like me, they didn't respond to me, or people know that something I didn't like, what did I do? Did I send that email that was wrong?
Right.
Two things, first of all. First thing is if you're having that thought, chances are you're a pretty good person, because it's like someone said to me, if you have to question if you're a good mother, you're probably a good mother. So you're probably a decent human being and you're probably great. And whatever happens, happens. But the evidence to support that negative thought is likely going to be very small. And the evidence to go against that thought is going to be really big, right? Why didn't they call you back? Okay, well, they're really busy. There's going to just be a long list of why they didn't. It's not what I wonder what you would actually say to support that. Well, probably nothing. Because it's all a tape that you've played. It is false information, right? And so I want you to think of true information. And remember, to try your hardest. Now, tapping is the other thing that I told a candidate today. If you have, and this is just as somebody who's not a teacher in it, as somebody just with anxiety, if you start to feel bad, you're in a client meeting, you're nervous, you're anxious, you're in an interview, something, think of a thought that makes you feel empowered. Think of a thought that makes you remind yourself of your values. And I want you, so for me, when I was diagnosed with cancer, I was very scared the last few years because it's only in the last four and a half years for me. So I was really scared for a long time. Recently, I've been getting a little better at it. And so what I would say, so what I did one day was, I was scared I was going to leave my children and they wouldn't be with me. So I would just, recently I tapped on my arm, like just like this, and I could do it under the table so no one sees. Or when, and this might seem like totally, I mean, I don't know if I'm going off the bandwagon here, but I also could tap like this. And I just said, you have enough time, Hillary. You have enough time, Hillary. You have enough time. And so if you're nervous, like you could say, listen, I have worked really hard. I have done a really good job. I am good at what I do. If I am good at what I do, I am good at what I do. And it seems hokey, and I'm sorry, but I just need to share it because it really is.
It's not hokey at all. No, it's not hokey at all. Actually, I've listened to everybody, but Tony Robbins talks about this too a lot, where he'll think about a time that he really succeeded or excelled at something, like right before a meeting. Remember that time you did really well? Remember that time you got that compliment? And then,
I remember, yes.
And,
yes.
You get into it. But it's like, even for auditions, my God, the amount of, fear and anxiety, and even like little things you know about yourself, right? I'm a very naturally animated person. So I don't let myself have coffee before an audition because I just know Sunita Deshpande is going to be off the charts. You just start to know little things about yourself. If you have a big meeting coming up, you don't get to have that cup of coffee until the meeting's over, then you get to celebrate. I don't care if it's 1 p.m, but if that's how you work, you have to just know your body. So
self-awareness, number one of emotional intelligence, self-awareness. That's
it really, it's a key set. I think for me personally, and as a woman of color, and things are changing now, and that's why I'm also coming up with my Mad Women podcast. It has been frustrating a lot of times because in the industry, there are certain things you cannot control, such as nepotism. I've noticed a lot of bros hiring up their other bro friends. I'll be like, oh, I wonder what that person's book looks like. And I'll see their book and I'm like, that's not that great of a book. Oh my gosh. Like there's all these art directional issues here. There's no strong concept. And also with recruiters as well. And I think a lot of folks are feeling this too, is that sometimes the recruiter will have no idea about the world of advertising at all. And they will not know what a good portfolio, you guys know what a strong portfolio looks like. But a lot of recruiters who are in-house at ad agencies are like 23. They didn't know what to do after college. And their dad got them a job there because they just seem like advertising can be fun and they're young and they're pretty and they like to go to parties. So that I think for me has been, as a woman of color, seeing that, and also just some people just don't care. Like they're an in-house recruiter and they just don't care about good books. Some young guy will come in and flirt with them and they'll hire him. So that to me is like super frustrating. I don't know if there's anything positive spin on that, but I'm just voicing it for the people who might not have been able to voice it today.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is to what we discussed today on in our workshop at Allyship in Action. I did it with a woman named Emily at Ogilvy. There's all the I learned through Equify, which is the certification through James Kinney, is that this
James
there's affinity bias, right? So affinity bias is like hiring like, and cronyism, right, which I thought was nepotism too, Sunita. Nepotism is like families hiring.
Like succession. Yeah.
Not trying to correct. I just want to, because this has this whole the bias.
Succession is more like
100%. Yep, it's nepotism, and that's part of the reason I didn't always get to work with Deutsch all the time, right? Once he moved up, I didn't necessarily always get to work with my brother, but I would say that there were other reasons, I'm sure, because I didn't get the job, right? But it's also beauty bias you talked about just now, right? Hiring people based upon the flirty thing and the flirtation thing. I will say that I was 21 when I started and I had an eye for it, but there's also the other side, right? That if friends of the family got them involved and they don't know enough about it. And so, these are all barriers. These are all barriers, and there is a solution to all of them. And it really is just education. And you have to hope that we as recruiters, internally and externally, and hiring managers continue to educate ourselves. And I would say to those of you that are looking for roles that are not in positions of hiring yet, is that you continually educate yourself too, so that you can learn the language in a way that allows you to speak back and be an ally for yourself. And I would say to find an ally that is a white person that could, speak up for you when if you're an an introvert, or you feel like you're not getting the point across, or you see it happening, or it's happening to you and you're watching it happen, like you discussed. It's finding that voice. And if you have a voice, we all have to. And it's only this year, I know we're wrapping up, but in the last few months since becoming a part of Allies in Recruiting, it's not to say that Leslie and I are not good human beings, that we haven't worked with people of color, that we haven't, that we're not aware, but definitely we were not aware enough. And definitely, I will say that I personally was not doing the work. And that reason is because recruiters are not trained really. We're thrown into position, in fairness. We're just told to do what we do because we might have an eye for it, or maybe we don't. And maybe we just are really good at communicating with people and interviewing. Maybe we're terrible at interviewing, but we have a great eye for books, or maybe we're amazing sourcers, right? And so training is invaluable, and we have to start training recruiters. And now I'm getting the training I need. So what I'm doing is when I talk to a client and I say, okay, we're finally getting more roles in, and I say, okay, I used to just say all this information we need. Now I'm asking, what does your diversity look like? What does inclusion look like at your company, right? We start off like, what are the soft skills that you need for this candidate, right? I think that's really, really important. And we're pushing back on that. It's super uncomfortable for me because these people are paying me my living, right? It's uncomfortable because I'm in a position as a candidate is in that moment, but I have to ask. And I think we're getting to a point where we're asking with more comfort, right? Because if everyone asks, we can ask, and we're starting to really ask the hard questions. So.
And then you don't get scapegoated or, be the black sheep if you're the only person asking. If there's other people asking too, it just makes it so much better. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so very much for both of you being here today. Again, Hillary Black, Catherine Freund. You have offered so much information. I'm getting text messages. I'm getting messages on here. Everybody's loving it. We will be placing this on our website next week, so you guys can get all the information there. Josh will be placing all of your information so people can reach out and contact you for any additional questions they might have. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
Yeah, I just want to say this was absolutely incredible and amazing. And I am just appreciative of everyone listening. For those of you that just listened and are people that just need to take it in, I appreciate that. I appreciate the Q&A. Sunita, you made this so much fun. You're an amazing presenter, and it's so helpful for us because for me, I get really anxious and nervous, no matter how it may seem that I'm not. It's nerve-wracking, and this felt so easy.
Oh, good.
And I also just want to say that I get to do what I love when I do this, and I get to be, this is the part that I so enjoy, and it's so much fun. I can tell because I start smiling naturally. So thank you so much. And to Kat, because oh man, she just makes it easier for me.
She does.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Kat just
I know you want to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you all for joining us and staying with us for these 2 hours on Zoom. Like, I'm so honored that you're here with us. And I just wanted to say, like, this is essentially like a preview of like what we do with our clients and what we do in this group coaching program we're starting for creatives. Starts in a couple weeks. So I put it in the chat. It's truly is such a joy to do this work, and without all of you, it wouldn't be possible. So from the bottom of my heart, I have such gratitude for you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks so much. Have a beautiful night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.